Tyler Shough has the upside to start in the NFL, but he might be too old to actually succeed. Ryan, Tyler Shough, 25-year-old quarterback with all the tools to be a starter. How the heck are we supposed to project a guy like this?
Well, I think you need to isolate it, Joe. Because in a vacuum, you go, "Hey, he's a 25-year-old late career breakout guy," right? But when you really kind of take a step back and look at it, this was his first full year as a starter when he was able to maintain health. So I would argue that this breakout may have happened a couple different years ago, but it just so happens that the injuries and just some kind of the things that had worked against him early on in his career affected his development. So he might be 25. He might be looked at as kind of a weird, just kind of chasm of, hey, this guy is developmental, but he's still a little bit older. But I think there's a lot of upside with the Tyler Shough, and I don't think that we've seen the best football from him because of the limited sample size and playing amount that he's been able to play during his career.
Yeah, at 6'5", 215, he's got all those tools, though, that we look for in somebody who could be a developmental day two eventual starter for a team. If he was a junior, I kind of wonder we'd be talking about him differently. Hey, young guy who's got this big arm, who drives the ball really well downfield, a quick trigger decision maker. He's able to make a lot of different difficult throws all over the field because he has that arm strength, and also a good athlete for a 6'5" guy. All of those things sound awesome when we're talking about a 21-year-old, but because he's 25, it does feel a little odd to me. I'd be willing to take him somewhere in the second, third round as a backup with the hope that he does start for my team. But it just does feel a little weird selecting somebody with that intent and him being like maybe 27 by the time he gets a shot.
Yeah, I would be willing to draft him in a similar range. He's more of a late day two guy for me, so I'm talking about like late third rounds. It is kind of weird because if you believe that he is a starter on the NFL level as an NFL team, you do kind of have to fast track him a little bit, right? Like this isn't a kid that you're like 3 years down the road. Like you're going to have to try to figure this out in the next 12, 18 months if that is realistic option for him long term. But it's so funny because I think you said it perfectly. If he was 21 or even 22 years old, just coming off the season that he had, and he didn't have injuries in his background and all the other minutia that we're kind of working through, I mean, there's some people mocking him in the late first rounds. Wouldn't we be talking about him in that similar vein if not for for all the complications that he brings to the table? Like this is a top 50 talent potentially just in a vacuum at the quarterback position. The problem is that the other stuff is where it really kind of drags down his evaluation a little bit.
And talking about the weaknesses, I think provides the context of why the tools that he has for his age outweigh the upside. Because he's 25, because he's not a perfectly well-rounded prospect, it gives you a little bit of pause, because if there does need to be some improvement and some development and some exposure to the pro game, again, well, by the time he's like actually really hitting his peak, he might be 28, 29 years old. Some of those weaknesses that stood out to me, Ryan, he's really inconsistent with his ball placement. There's some balls that he places that are perfect, hitting a guy in stride, and they're just moving. Everything looks awesome. And then it's just errant. The ball is just nowhere. The ball flutters. He doesn't set his feet. That inconsistency is very frustrating for me. And again, for a 25-year-old, it's not like Bo Nix last year where he came out and he was a little bit more ready to go. Shough doesn't fit that description.
Well, you know what's funny is I wish he would have had a second year under Jeff Brom, right? Like I wish that we could like rewind it. He could have went to Louisville or gone with Coach Brom, 2 years ago, rather than just 1 year, because Coach Brom is known for getting guys from a mechanical perspective really well, really at a high level. Like Aiden O'Connell is an example of like Aiden O'Connell is not a very talented athlete or a talented passer, but he's really mechanically sound, which is why he's playing in the NFL right now. Tyler Shough is not. Tyler Shough is he's a little bit of a gunslinger, right? Like he sacrifices mechanics at times to make big plays, to go big game hunting. And that affects accuracy, that affects his base. I do think he kind of, just generally speaking, has some inconsistencies from post-snap reads. Like I think late rotations kind of bother him at certain instances. All the talent is there. And the good thing for him, though, is that he is a quarterback, right? So we are talking about a longer shelf life at the quarterback position. This isn't like a running back where it's like 28 years old. You're done, bro. Like, you don't have a shelf life to be able to develop. He still has a little bit of a runway here. The biggest concern, Joe, that I think we kind of been skating over as a collective, though, is 7 years. Basically, he only had one really healthy season in 7 years. A couple others where he was semi-healthy, but he's had a long string of durability and injury concerns. So we can talk about projecting forward to 3 years, but how are we so safely projecting that he's even going to be able to stay healthy during that time as well? Like, that's another part of this projection that's a little bit murky for me, in my opinion.
That leads perfectly into talking about his background, because this is a guy who's been playing college football for a million years. He's been around for so long. Originally started at Oregon. He was the 6th pro-style quarterback in the 2018 recruiting class. If anybody wants some added weird context, I played Division I football at Rhode Island. I was the 2016 class. I haven't played football in 4 years, over 4 years, coming up on 5 years in the fall. That is how crazy this is. He ended up at Oregon. He transferred to Texas Tech, and then he found himself playing in Brom's offense, where he unlocked his potential the most out of any destination at Louisville to end his career.
I just want to throw out his quarterback class real quick before we kind of wrap this guy up in a minute here, Joe. But he was a part of that 2018 quarterback class, like you said. Top 100 recruits out of the state of Arizona. He was considered the number 6 quarterback, number 94 overall player, according to 247 Sports. He went to Hamilton High School in Chandler, Arizona. The 5 quarterbacks that were in front of him. Number 1, Trevor Lawrence, who just got a second contract a year ago. JT Daniels, number 2. Tanner McKee, Super Bowl winner, Tanner McKee, backup quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. We have Jaron Williams, who played at Miami for a couple years. And then the last quarterback that was in front of him, Matt Corral, former Ole Miss great Matt Corral, which is hilarious. Number 15 quarterback class in that class, according to 247 Sports, was Joe Milton, by the way. I know you're a big Joe Milton guy.
To talk about a pro comp for Tyler Shough, you like the idea of him as Ryan Tannehill, and I like that. Tannehill wasn't as old coming into the NFL, but wasn't a fully baked prospect because he played some receiver, good athlete, big frame, and he started to hit his stride a little bit later on in his NFL career, and his best season came in his final years with the Dolphins, and then with the Tennessee Titans was when we saw him at his best. I really like this comparison, though. I think that there's a lot to be drawn from it.
Well, I think that the late career blossoming for Ryan Tannehill is very interesting for different reasons. But like you said, he was a quarterback that turned to wide receiver out of necessity at Texas A&M, and then was only a 1-year starter at Texas A&M. You saw a lot of upside, but there was a lot that needed to improve and a lot of playing time that needed to be had. And I feel the same about Tyler Shough. And athletically, they're very similar. Ryan Tannehill, I think, ran like 4.67 at 6'4 plus, 220 pounds. So like similarly sized athletes, stronger arms, but then also they are really athletic for their size as well. So I think physically it makes a lot of sense. And that late runway of development is very interesting as well.
Folks, let us know in the comments below, what team do you want to see Tyler Shough be drafted by? Hit that like button and subscribe. We'll talk to you later.